I'm here with Colby today of Wormwitch to talk about their self-titled record. Very audacious of you guys to go with the self-titled record. Out July 26th on Profound Lore Records. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me about the band, about this self-titled album. How are things going with you?
Things are good. Yeah, it's a Friday. The sun is shining. Can't complain.
On,
Uh,
on your side of the country, not on my side of the country.
oh yeah, where are you located?
I'm in Toronto.
Okay, yeah, I'm here in BC. It's still sunshine out, but yeah, thanks for doing this with me.
No, thank you for taking the time. First of all, I want to start off by apologizing that it took me up to this record to discover you guys. I don't know what the hell I've been doing, but obviously I've been doing something wrong all along because now I'm here talking to you after listening to this self-titled record. And before we talk about the album, let me ask you this. What kind of challenges do you guys face being from BC and being a black metal band, which is not necessarily a genre that we see coming out of Canada very often?
Yeah, I don't know about if BC presents many challenges, but being a Canadian band is definitely tough just because it's not a big market for touring. So anytime you want to play in the States, it means visas and renting vans and a lot more traveling. And of course, Europe and going anywhere else in the world, there's more cost, more overhead. So that's tough. BC is also maybe a little bit difficult because on the east coast of Canada, there's a lot more cities, a lot more places to play. Here we've got Vancouver, and then the next major city would be Calgary or Edmonton in Alberta, right? So long drives, long spaces, but that's also why we like it here. So it's good.
Gives you a little bit of seclusion, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you guys take inspiration from where you are geographically and take that into your music, into the sound that you guys create?
Yeah, for sure. The our environment and the nature out here is definitely just part of our personalities at this point. So it comes through in the music. Black metal has always kind of had a connection to the forest and to this sort of biome. I feel like the conifer forest that we have out here feel feel like black metal to me. So yeah, it definitely comes through in the music, but it's also just the way we live our lives.
You guys haven't gotten lost in any of these forests, have you?
We haven't gotten lost. We've gotten a little turned around, but
I was,
never too seriously.
yeah, I was just like, oh, do we have to send some forest guards to find you guys after a photo shoot in the forest? I hope that's not the case.
I'm sure that's happened to some bands. The deeper you go into the woods, the higher the chance of getting lost.
That is very true. Now, I started off this conversation by saying a very audacious move with a self-title. I was obviously joking, but there's always a special meaning that comes with going with a self-title record.
Mm.
What does it represent for you guys going with a self-title record for this one?
Well, I appreciate that you said that it's audacious because we felt the same way and we thought it was a cool statement to make at this point. We've always kind of wanted to do a self-titled record because it's a statement of this is the band. Like we were at this point confident enough to say that this is what we want our band to sound like. And we never really felt like we were ready for that statement in the past. I think we probably considered it with every album when we come to deciding what to name it. But it never felt right to call an album Wormwitch until this one. And we had that discussion pretty early on, like, should we just self-title this record? And that was an exciting idea. It felt right. So we did it. And yeah, it's cool. It feels a little bit ballsy. So we like that about it.
Yeah, so that idea came right from the start, or it became a little bit more. You guys became a little bit more assured of it as the record started to kind of blossom into what it ended up being.
Um, I think that was an idea from early on. I'm not sure exactly at what point we decided on that, but I think near the end of the record, we left it open if we felt like we wanted to give a name and color the album with some sort of name. Uh, we would have done it, but throughout the whole process, we knew that we wanted to just call it Wormwitch. So
I know
the
you
idea.
guys Yeah, I know you guys like to go into the forest, but what was the hardest mountain to climb when it came to putting this album together?
Hmm, the hardest mountain to climb. I don't know. It wasn't a particularly difficult process. We've had more challenges in the past, but this one came together pretty nicely. I think also part of self-titling the record is because we figured out our process in a lot of ways. The way that we wrote it is similar to how we've written in the past. Um, so we feel like we're kind of hitting our stride. So like yeah, I can't really think of any major issues that we faced or big problems. It was a pretty smooth process.
Figuring it out the process, does that equate to also figuring it out what your fingerprint sound is going to be?
Yeah, well, I don't think that we have a we set out intentionally to have a particular sound or to be original or stand apart from the crowd in any way, but that's just our personalities as musicians shining through. So that's just a natural byproduct of making music, honestly, from your heart. So yeah, that's it's something that we I think that if we set out to make something different, we would probably that would be a hindrance more than anything else. We just kind of want to make good heavy metal for ourselves.
And when you look at the sound that you guys have, when you look at the black metal experience that you guys have in your sound, um, and you look at where you are in the world where you live in BC, like you said, you're in Canada. What does black metal mean to you? Like if you had to define it, what it is that connects with you?
That's a good question. What does black metal mean to me? I feel to me, I don't think about it so philosophically or ethically or morally. I just love the riffs. I love the music, you know? Um that's kind of the way that I look at heavy metal and all music is just the sound and the way that I feel when I put on those classic records. So we love the classic black metal bands and we love newer bands and I don't know, we're just fans of the genre. Um and so that's what we have fun playing when we get together. So I don't know. It's hard to say what black metal means to me. It means a lot to me in a lot of ways. It's a big question.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah, at the end of the day, I think that our goal is just to make cool music that reminds us of Dark Throne. You know.
hey, that's a good way to that's a good way to approach it. I have no issues with that. I think that's a very fun way of having an outlook on what you guys are doing. And going into this record, I'm listening to the album, and one of the things that resonated with me is that you guys had different intros in some of the song, not every song, but you had some different intros on tracks using acoustic elements, using samples, going with different ideas. It's not like every song had the same prototype or the same format. The album, at least as the song started, they all had their own unique way of getting the experience going. Uh,
Mm.
what was the thought process behind that approach to give at least almost every single track a very unique starting point?
I think that's something that we always that's a tool in our arsenal of songwriting. I feel like I just like to do that, and also we tend to write songs front to back. We don't really like start with a middle section. We plan out a song starting with the intro typically, and that's an easy way. Maybe I shouldn't say an easy way, but that's a helpful way to get inspired and throw paint on the canvas and get your hands dirty is to think of what's a way that we have not yet started a song, and then you can go from there. So yeah, that's something that we probably do think about and like to do.
Is there any element that would be outside of the realm of what the band is all about sound wise that you guys would not think of including in a song? I mean, you get, like I said, you had samples, you had acoustic guitars. I mean, you had elements that are not necessarily traditional uh,
Mhm.
from a overall record standpoint. So, is there something that you would feel like it's a little bit too much out there?
Yeah, well, I we like to work with a kind of limited palette. I think that in any genre, there's an element of tradition, and I feel a obligation to uh to be respectful to the genre and to the tradition of that style. So I wouldn't want to stray too far away from the masters of the styles, like the black metal and death metal bands that we love. So you're not going to hear any hip hop beats or anything like that in a Wormwitch song. Um, but I think within a certain realm, you can get away with some cool stuff, some interesting sounds. But it always kind of has to have that grim feeling that reminds us of our favorite bands.
So it's safe to say that you guys are not going to have any track with jelly rolls anytime soon.
No, no Jelly Roll features.
That's I mean, from my side of things, that's a good thing. I'm glad you put that out there because I think the universe needs to know that. I think
Yeah,
at least most of us have had enough of that guy. So knowing that he's not going to be on any future tracks from you guys, I think this is a positive.
yeah.
You
I haven't listened to him very much. I think I checked out the first 3 seconds of a song once and turned it right off.
well, I
Yeah,
give you credit for that. That was very generous of you to give it 3 seconds.
I did.
This record, one thing that stood out outside of those intros was the drum sound. Which normally when you listen to a black metal record, the first thing that people will talk about is probably the riffs, the guitar sound, the essence that comes out of that. But this record had such an impactful drum sound. I know you were not the one behind the drum kit, but um, what do you feel like that sound in the mix gives you as a guitar player the opportunity to do?
It gives me the opportunity to do. Um, I don't know. That's an interesting question, but we like the drum sound that we achieved. Like we put a lot of thought and work into the drum sound, because it has to be the right balance of cutting and sharp and have a good high end attack, but also be boomy and roomy. Um, we love the sound of like classic rock drums, like a big slamming snare drum and like the sound of a big room. So that's kind of a focal point of the recording process, is getting that drum sound perfect. Um, and the guitar, I think, is designed to fit with the drums more than vice versa. Uh, and in terms of the songwriting as well, like we really with this record, we really wanted fast drums, lots of blast beats, more kind of maximal drumming and uh, just fast metal drumming. So the riffs are there almost to support that in a lot of ways.
That's exactly how I felt listening to it, and that's not what I was expecting going in. And I think it was one of the things that sold me on the record was this kind of different approach to it, but an approach that works so good because you still feel the riffs, you still feel the darkness
Mhm.
coming out of the riffs, but the drum sound makes the tracks feel a lot wider. It just gives them
Mhm.
more room.
Yeah, I think records like our past albums, probably all of them have been more guitar focused, but this one we really just wanted to sound explosive and hard hitting. And I think having drums in the forefront of the mix and focusing on like a really uh, just hard drum sound was the most important most important part of the mix.
How much work do you put on your guitars when it's time to record a record? Do you do a lot of pre-production? Do you do a lot of demoing? Do you do a lot of work even before getting into the studio? How is your workload?
We do demos, I guess. We write with demos. We live apart now. The other guys have moved to different parts of the world, so we're kind of a long distance band. So we send tracks back and forth, usually guitar ideas, and the drums don't really come in until we get into the studio. So there are always these kind of demo versions of the songs with just riffs and a metronome floating around, but we try not to get too attached to them. We let things change in the studio as much as possible.
Being long distance, has that been difficult, or you've discovered ways to work around it?
It hasn't. We haven't been in that situation for very long, so it's kind of hard to say how it's going to shake out. But we don't really. When we lived in the same city, we didn't get together that much either. Uh, so I can't see it being a big issue. Like we have tours that are in the works. We're going to get together in Quebec to rehearse, and we'll probably write over the internet like we have in the past, and get
Y-
together for some rehearsals and recordings when the time comes.
So you guys were social distancing before that was even a thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys were ahead of the curve.
yeah.
And the production on this record, who did you guys work with?
His name is Michael Kroshar. He's a engineer that works in New Westminster, BC. Um, I don't really know how we met him. Actually, I think Izzy, our drummer, worked with another band who ended up recording with him, and he came back from that recording session, really excited about Michael and saying that he had such a cool perspective and a cool approach to recording, and he thought it would be a good fit for Wormwitch. So we released a split before this record. I think we just released it a month or two ago. That was our first session that we did with Michael, and we were really happy with the results. And just his personality as a guy to work with really fit with us. So it was kind of a no brainer to do the record with him.
It turned out really good, and I think the production is such an important aspect of this album because it still has some elements of an old school black metal sounding record, but at the same time, it sounds like it has a little bit more of a modern take, but it's not overly modernized. I don't know if what I just said makes sense to you, but
Yeah,
the,
totally.
the,
I'm glad you feel that way because that's what we were hoping to accomplish.
yeah, the album totally has that vibe, and I think it's refreshing. It's really refreshing because a lot of bands now are releasing records that sound like they were released like I don't know ages ago, which has already been done before, and then some bands are going over really overproducing it, and I just feel like that also takes away the essence of what the genre is all about. It's so hard to find a happy medium.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. We all do. So that's definitely what we were trying to accomplish. We're because we don't want to be nostalgic. We're not trying to create a copy of the past, but we're just not fans of slick, clean, modern production. Uh, all the bands that we like have that kind of more raw sound, so we wanted to strike that balance. So I'm glad that you feel that way. Thank you.
I have to ask you about this song because the moment I got the album and I'm listening to it and I'm going through the track listing and I see Draconic, I'm reading it, a Draconic Sorceress Canadian Witch Knights. I'm like, I'm Canadian. What is this? Like, I was like, is this a thing? Like, is this happening in other parts of Canada that I'm not aware of? Is there a party going on with witches that nobody's invited me to? Like, what does this mean?
I don't think that term has spread outside of our camp yet, but I hope that it does. It's just a phrase that we came up with jokingly, just to kind of describe ourselves. We put it on the back of a T-shirt that I think it's still my favorite T-shirt we have, and it was just kind of a fun slogan to describe us as some Canadian black metal wizards, and that's kind of what that song is about. Is just being in a band. It's kind of a classic, like just playing in a rock and roll band song. So we wanted to give it a kind of tongue in cheek name like that. But I hope it catches on. I hope more people identify with it.
I think I think it's genius, at least for the Canadian market. Because the moment I saw that song on the track, even before I got to the song, the moment I saw that song, I was like, now there's a song I'm going to spend some time really listening to because what is that? Like, I'm trying to break it down, all the different words, trying to like analyze it. Like, what could this be? Really intriguing, and I love the fact that you guys are playing off of the Canadian roots and putting a song like that together. That shirt must be really popular.
It is, yeah. We're just proud of being Canadians, and we like being a Canadian band. So we kind of like. There was another song the the album before, but that had Canadian in the title. We just think it's cool and fun to identify with that.
I think it's genius. I love it. And speaking of being Canadian and identifying with black metal, in your opinion, what is the most black metal Canadian city?
Montreal's up there. I don't know how many bands are from the city itself, but there's a lot of cool bands from Quebec. Uh, that's my answer, Montreal.
No, but you're looking from in terms of bands in the city. What about if you look at the city that oozes black
Oh,
metal in terms of when you look at that city or when you spend time in that city, you're like, this is black metal. This city
yeah.
is black metal.
Maybe Vancouver because Vancouver is dirty and full of sadness. It's yeah, I don't know, but it's also not that cold. So maybe some like really far north place, Fort
Some
McMurray.
I was gonna say Nunavut, but okay,
Yeah,
Fort McMurray is good. I'll take that.
yeah. It's
I'll
depressing and cold.
One last question for you. You mentioned getting together with the guys in Quebec to do some practicing because you guys going to have some shows. When are you guys going to hit the road? What do you have planned for supporting this new record?
We're working on it right now. Nothing's really locked in yet because things just kind of take more time the way that our circumstances are. We're shooting for the fall. We were hoping for September, October, but things are taking a little longer, so maybe it'll be November. It's hard to say, but fall, early winter, hopefully.
Are you looking for something like US, Canada, Europe, or you're looking just maybe even
Yeah,
doing just a Canadian run?
it's probably going to be like an Eastern North America thing, some Eastern Canada and some Eastern states.
I'm finding that a lot of bands are doing that these days because in terms of distance, there's a lot more cities in close proximity, which makes the whole logistics a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, that ties into what we were talking about earlier. How uh, in BC you have access to the West Coast, and so we've done the West Coast quite a bit. We've gone down to San Diego and back several times. But there's much more you can do in Eastern Canada than Western Canada. So being somewhat Montreal based uh, does make things easier, and then we can get access to that market that we haven't spent so much time in.
Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here in Toronto, and I promise I'll pick up a shirt if you bring these shirts with
Cool.
you. Because I first of all, the song is badass, so that's a bonus, and the fact that you guys have made a T-shirt out of it, I'm all in. All my chips are going in the middle. I need to get one of those.
Nice, thank you. I appreciate
Well,
that.
well, Kobe, thank you very much for your time today, man. This has been an absolute pleasure. It was a lot of fun listening to the record. Once again, I want to apologize for only discovering you guys with a self-title, but hey, if you're going to discover a band, discovering them with a self-titled record, that's a pretty good way to go.
For sure. Yeah. Nothing to apologize for there. And that's also part of why we made that choice, because I feel like it kind of it marks a new beginning for a band, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Which is
yeah.
how we look at it, you know.
I totally feel that way. And listening to you guys, the funny thing is when I pressed play and I started listening to the record, I didn't know you guys were from BC. I had no idea you guys were Canadian. So I'm listening to the band and then I see that song and I'm like, wow, this is strange. Like, because you guys don't. I mean, when I think of Canadian bands these days, you think more about like power metal or technical death metal.
Mhm.
There's not as many great black metal bands having as much of an audience, even outside of Canada these days. Even though there's some really great ones out of Montreal, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
So when I saw that song title, I was like, I wonder where they're from, and that's when I went and I discovered like, okay, now things are making sense. Things are going full circle.
Cool. Great. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate your perspective on it.
Well, thank you very much for your time, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
Enjoy
great.
the rest of your sunny Friday and enjoy the weekend.
Will
And
do.
I hope to see you in the fall.
Yeah. See you on the road. Take it
All
easy.
right, man. Take care, man. Bye.
Good night.